Well, TCU is a little salty about being left out of the preseason rankings. Now they rank number 8 after they rolled over Oklahoma State, which I don't think anyone really expected that outcome.
Yeah, and with an overall series matchup of 3 wins and 3 losses for both teams, this rubber match will be extremely exciting to watch this coming Saturday, Janae.
It will. I'm looking forward to it. But as they take on West Virginia, what are some of the TCU strengths, Griffin?
TCU has a very balanced overall attack. They do rely slightly more on the run. They're currently 25th in rushing yards per game with 232 yards. Their defense is one of the top in the entire nation, which I never thought that I would ever say about a Big 12 team. TCU's prided themselves on defense for a couple years now, and only allowing 18 points per game and 94 rushing yards per game. It has really become one of the true strengths of their football team. TCU also forces a lot of turnovers, and on offense, their quarterback, Kenny Hill, is really good at playing smart and reducing their turnovers. They don't have as many big plays as they did a year ago, but forcing 4 turnovers last week against a good Oklahoma State offense could be really important this week again against the number 23 ranked Mountaineers in West Virginia.
Well, the Mountaineers have Will Grier, who has just been serving them very well this season. He's sparked a fire in this offense and has nearly 1,400 passing yards with a touchdown to interception ratio of 13-3. That's one of the better ones we've seen throughout college football this season. But he also leads a second-ranked offense who gathers 600 yards per game. And that's nearly 100 yards more than the TCU offense per game.
And TCU surprisingly still has one of the top-ranked offenses in the league, which is just goes to show you how impressive West Virginia's offense truly is this year. One of the largest weaknesses for this West Virginia team, and one of their biggest weaknesses throughout the past few years for West Virginia, has truly been their defense. Last week alone against Kansas, which isn't exactly a football powerhouse, they allowed 564 yards of total offense, and they're averaging a defensive let-up of just over 450 yards this season, which is one of the worst in all of college football.
And they haven't even really played anyone, which is surprising.
Their strength of schedule is pretty abysmal at this point in the year.
But TCU has a couple weaknesses themselves. They also have a strength of schedule problem, only of really playing Oklahoma State, but they made that game count, beating them by 13 points. And secondly, the aerial attack. That is one of Kenny Hill's weaknesses. He is one of 2 quarterbacks in the Big 12 that doesn't have 1,000 passing yards as we enter Week 6.
And while he doesn't quite have 1,000 passing yards, he is extremely close. He has 965 passing yards. So with just 35 more passing yards to go, I'm sure he'll eclipse that 1,000-yard mark by the end of the first quarter. Kenny Hill is my key player of the week. He's currently just playing really smart, limiting turnovers. He only has 3 interceptions and 9 touchdowns on the year. His completion percentage is also 72.6, which is one of the top in all of college football. He can create plays with his legs, as we've seen before this year and with TCU, and before when he was at Texas A&M. He's going to be one of the more interesting players to watch, even though he's playing a little safer than he used to.
And as far as West Virginia goes, their key player of the game is wide receiver David Sills, who has one of 4 receivers on this offense who has more than 200 yards receiving. This gives Will Grier several options to work with. He has 396 yards off of 26 carries, averaging about 15 yards per carry, and he has 7 total rushing touchdowns. Griffin, who do you think has the edge going into this game?
It's tough to say, but I think with TCU's stout defense and being by far the best defense that West Virginia has played all season, I think that TCU has a slight advantage. I think it's going to be a fairly high-scoring matchup. I think the final score is going to be 35-32 for TCU.
And I love strong defensive play. That's something I preach here. Defense wins games, and I think it's going to come down to TCU's defense getting the stops they need against an elite offense. And I just think coming off of such a high with Oklahoma State, they're going to be ready for this, whereas West Virginia, their strength and schedule is so weak. They haven't really played anyone, and I just don't see them getting the win here against TCU. Thanks for watching RedZone to EndZone. I'm Janae Muchmore, joined by special guest
Griffin Parkrose.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The social links are below. And be sure to check out our other games this week on the right-hand side of your screen. Have a great night.
Have a good night, guys.